Okay, so next we want to create a handler for our comments, and inside our application and comments, just going to create another C# class, and this one we'll simply call create to create a new comment, and this will be a command handler. And let's just bring in what we need for this. So that's mediator, that's persistence, and we need system.threading for the task and the cancellation token, and also for the exception. And in this particular command, what we do want to do on this occasion is also return the comments, because when a user creates a new comment, we have to return this not just to the client that's asking for it or has just sent it, but anybody else who's connected to our activity is also going to be receiving this comment. So we're going to have to return the comment from this particular command. So what we'll do is we'll add a type onto our request and we'll return our comments DTO. And that means we also need to add it to our handler as what we're returning, and also instead of the units, we'll be returning the comments DTO. And we'll deal with this shortly. So inside our command, we're going to need to receive the body. So we'll add a string for the body of the comments. We also need the activity ID in here. So we'll pass in the activity ID. And for this particular handler, we're going to need to pass in the username as well. Because since we're not using an HTTP request to send our post, and in fact it's not even a post request because it's not going to be an HTTP request that goes to this command, then we're going to need to get our username in a slightly different way. And we'll come on to that, but for now we'll just set up our handler and we'll base it on the fact that we're going to pass in our username as part of the command. And what we'll do then is we'll also bring in IMapper into our handler constructor and call it mapper and bring in automapper, and we'll initialize the field from parameter and remove this dot. So inside our handler logic, this is where things become very similar to what we've done before as well. So we'll get our activity and we'll say our activity is await context.activities.findAsync, because we're using the primary key in this case, which is the activity ID. So we can use the request.activity ID to get the activity. We also want to check to see if this is null or not. And if it is null, then we just want to throw a new REST exception and bring in application errors and HTTP status code and bring in system.net, and then we'll say not found, and then we'll just create our new object error and say activity equals not found. We then want to go and get our user, so we'll say var user equals await context.users, and we're using the username here, so we have to use something else other than find async. So we'll use single or default async, and we'll need to bring in entity framework core, and in the expression we'll say the username is equal to the request.username. And with this information, we can now create our new comment. So we'll say var comment equals new comments, and we'll need to bring in domain to use this. And we'll just add the properties that we need for our comment. So the author will be the user, the activity will be the activity, the body will equal request.body, and created at we'll just set to date time dot now. And then we can add the comments to our activity. So we'll say activity.comments.adds, and then we'll pass in the comments. And then this stays the same because we're still saving our changes into our database. And what we want to return is our comment DTO. So what we'll do is we'll say if success, we'll return mapper.map. And what we want to map to in this case is going to be our comment DTO. And what we're mapping from is going to be our comment. So our handler is still pretty much the same as what we've done before, only a slight difference in how we're passing our username into this. We can't use our user accessor because that's reliant on the HTTP context. And since we're not using HTTP when it comes to SignalR, we're using WebSockets, we don't have access to our HTTP context. So we'll come on to what we need to do to get around that shortly. But next up, we'll actually add SignalR to our API, and then we'll create our chat hub, and we'll take a look at that next.